Bhavana and Radhesham. We'll hear more from you later, right? Got a lot of kirtan singers organized by Govinda Dev Prabhu, who himself is going to lead the arti in about 20 minutes' time. Our Diwali celebrations, as you might have guessed, are considerably scaled back from what we would like to do and from what we've done in previous years. The two main omissions this year, because of COVID obviously, are the fireworks show. I had a lot of people calling me about the fireworks, had to disappoint them. And then usually in the auditorium we have a big dance program by one of the local Bharatanatyam dance schools, but it's just not deemed safe enough to have a full-fledged, full-blown program like we have in the past. Hopefully we'll get back to that in 2021. But what we do have will be an arti from 6:30 to 7, and then we're going to sing the Damodarastakam prayers because this is the month of Damodar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take pretty much the whole hour to circumambulate Govardhan Hill and to offer the lamps. In the past, we've pretty much had people do it all at one time. In other words, there was a certain set time in the program when everybody would offer lamps, and then there was a certain other set time when everybody would go around Govardhan Hill together. But we're just trying to diffuse everything. And so at your will, or as people come, they'll be invited to be offer a lamp, and they'll be invited to circulate Govardhan Puja. So that'll be going on throughout the 7 to 8 o'clock hour. In the meantime, to further disperse the crowd or divide up the crowd, we'll be serving prashadam. I think it's an $8 donation for a full 5-course meal out in the lobby. And you can either take that with you or you can sit and spread out in the lobby in order to enjoy that. So hopefully that'll give you a measure of enjoyment and spiritual fuel to get you through whatever it is that is coming in the future. So the interesting thing about Diwali is, of course, the most obvious thing, the festival of lights. Diva, as most of the people in the audience know, means lights, and Wali means a row of lights. And it celebrates Ram returning to his capital city, Ayodhya, after 14 years of exile. And throughout the Vedic culture, light represents good, knowledge, freedom from stress, freedom from anxiety. Light represents honesty. If I were to give you the best blessing that I could possibly think of, the highest blessing, the highest invocation in all of Vedic culture, would be Om Asatomad Sadgamaya, Om Tamashomad Jyotirgamaya, Om Nitamad Amritam Gamaya, Om, can you say it with me? Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So the first thing I would wish you is to go from the temporary world, the changing world, which is constantly in flux, to the eternal world. And we ourselves represent that paradox, because we are created eternal. The living force within each and every body is in fact springs or a denizen of the eternal world. There's no time when we did not exist, nor will there any time when we will cease to be. Lord Krishna affirms in the Bhagavad Gita. And yet some or other we find ourselves in this corporeal form, which is just the opposite. It is temporary and it is constantly changing. Even as you sit there, cells are dying, being replaced by new ones. Every 7 to 10 years, medical science tells us that all the cells of the body will have died and been replaced by new cells. So you have this dichotomy between the inner eternal self and the outer changing material body. So festivals like this, where we have concentrated philosophy, concentrated worship, concentrated chanting, and normally a little bit more concentrated association with each other, even in the physical sense, is meant to bring out the spirituality. And that automatically brings freedom from doubt, confidence, joy, peace, creativity, insight, intimate, loving relationships. So we all need that because we're in this material world. We're in a materially oriented society where we're pushed to produce from an economic point of view, and there's very little, if no emphasis, on the real self, the spiritual self. So while there's more that caters to the needs of the body than ever before, perhaps in history, there's probably never been in history less that speaks to the soul. So you could literally be physically good-looking, healthy, with glowing hair and a nice car and a nice house, and be dying inside. The body could be in a state of relative prosperity, but the soul could be dying for lack of nutrition, for lack of attention. And so this Festival of Lights is meant to illuminate or to bring out the best, the eternal quality of us. I don't know. At least it looks like wood. It's probably one of those fake plastic things with the grains in it. But let's just say, for argument's sake, this is wood here, this podium. So if it were wood, there would be fire contained within the wood, isn't it? But the fire's not going to spontaneously leap out. It's going to just stay right where it is. I'm not going to get burned. It's not like, oh. However, when you bring fire externally, then that external fire in the shape of a match will bring out the fire which is already inside the wood. So we are spirit souls, but that's kind of covered, suppressed in this material world. And so a festival like this, where we sing the names of the Lord, where we worship the deities, and basically we celebrate light, we celebrate our real spiritual inner selves, is meant to bring all of that out. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that whenever the world becomes too dark, when there are too few opportunities to illuminate the soul, and there's too few incentives by whoever's governing and controlling and ruling for people to step into self-realization, then Krishna himself descends from the spiritual world. Yada yadahi dharmasya glanir bhavati bhara. When there's too much darkness and not enough light, then the Lord comes in order to guide the way, to provide headlights, the high beams, you might speak, back to home, back to God. And an incarnation of Krishna, or an incarnation of God, is Lord Rama. Now, the difference between Krishna and Rama is that Krishna descends as God. Aishwarya Samagasha Viryasha Yasya Ganam Sanam Bhagami Tinganam. Sanam Bhaga means 6 opulences in full: wealth, strength, beauty, knowledge, fame, and humility. He displays all of these opulences. For instance, in his city in Dwarka, he had 16,000 palaces in the city of Dwarka. And those were just his palaces, what to speak of the other palaces. As far as knowledge is concerned, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita just off the top of his head in a half an hour. Actually, they say it takes 48 minutes to recite the Bhagavad Gita. Under the most stressful of circumstances, there are 2 armies ready to rush to charge each other, and Krishna, as the chariot driver of Arjuna, is calmly, chill, speaking the philosophy of the soul right on the verge of this huge fratricidal war. And even though spoken off the cup, as it were, within a half an hour, big scholars and philosophers at Cambridge and Harvard and Oxford study the Bhagavad Gita for 30 or 40 years and fail to understand even one sentence of what the Bhagavad Gita said. So wealth, strength, beauty, strength, we're going to celebrate as part of this composite get-together this afternoon, the lifting of Govardhan Hill by Krishna at the age of 7, in the 7th year of his earthly manifestation, which, by the way, started about 5,300 years ago. He was on the planet altogether for 125 years. He spoke the Bhagavad Gita in approximately the 90th year of his pastimes. But in the 7th year, when he was exhibiting the small body of a child in the rural village of Vrindavan, the annual custom there, an agriculture village, depending on good rainfall and crops, their custom was to worship, do an elaborate puja to Indra, the god of rain, so that he would be pleased. Then, of course, from rain, you get good grass, you get good crops, you get happy fat cows, you get milk, yogurt, butter, cheese, ice cream, ricotta, and all those good things. But Krishna talked his father, Nanda Maharaj, out of worshiping Indra, the lord of the rains, into worshiping Krishna. And his reasoning was, why worship the servants of the Lord? Just worship the Lord. When you put food in the mouth, it automatically nourishes all the other parts of the body. So the demigods like Indra and Brahma and others, they're like parts of the body of the Lord. One needn't worship them separately because there are 33 million of them in each universe. So you wouldn't want to embark upon that course, I don't think. In fact, Pragna one time called us up, wasn't it, a few years ago? She said, "True, what am I going to do? There's 33 million demigods and I can't worship them all," right? The good news is, Krishna is teaching us in this specific pastime that you don't have to. Just worship the root. If you put water on the root of the tree, the branches, leaves, twigs, and flowers will automatically be nourished. So Krishna said to Nandaraj, we don't have to worship Indra, just let's worship the Brahmins, let's worship Govardhan hill. And Krishna entered into the hill, became the hill, and accepted the worship. Now, to further illustrate Krishna's point, when Indra heard that he was not going to be the recipient of the worship, he got very angry, not realizing that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, his Lord and Master, was present. I think he realized it, but being in his domain and having limited sovereignty over the reigns for hundreds of thousands of years, I think he just got a little bit proprietary about it. He got a little bit off course. So he tried to inundate, he tried to destroy the whole area of Vrindavan by sending the rain clouds, which are normally only invoked at the time of cosmic annihilation. This wasn't just a storm. This wasn't just a bad storm. This was far beyond Category 5. This was Category 550. So the whole area, within a matter of minutes, the water was rising, the temperatures dropped, it was extremely uncomfortable, dangerous. The cows, the boys, and all the inhabitants were in danger of losing their lives, and they did what they always did. Krishna, Govinda, save us. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in order to illustrate his point, Krishna lifted up Govardhan Hill. You see a replicate of it over there. He lifted up Govardhan Hill, and it's explained that 5,000 years ago, Govardhan Hill was much bigger than it is now. Govardhan, due to a curse, has to shrink every year. So it was much bigger. It was more like a mountain 5,000 years ago. Today, people, right now, as we celebrate Diwali and Govardhan Puja, in India, there are tens of thousands of people walking around the hill. There's a dusty path. It is 25 kilometers, or about 15 miles. And there will be, as we sit here, thousands and thousands of people walking around Govardhan Hill, celebrating this pastimes of the Lord, bringing out the inner light, celebrating light over darkness, and getting all the benefit of it. Now, the good news is that we're going to bring the hill out here just shortly after 7 o'clock, and whatever benefits you get from being in India and from walking 25 kilometers around the hill, you're going to get right here in Salt Lake City just by walking around that table one time. So, woo! So that alone should have been worth your coming out here tonight. So strength. What strong man can lift a hill, a mountain? You know, the strongest of men, after taking creatine and steroids, might be able to lift a Volkswagen with a lot of grunting and groaning and hold it for 2 or 3 seconds. But Krishna, at the age of 7, effortlessly lifted up this huge hill, held it as easily as a child holds a mushroom up in the air as an umbrella, and invited all the inhabitants of Vrindavan to shelter underneath the hill while the rain continued, not 1, 2, 3, 4, but for 7 days. Now, everything Krishna does comes down to love. It comes down to what we call ras, or flavor. Have you ever been caught with a loved one out in a quick, sudden summer storm while you were hiking and you took shelter under a ledge and you stood there enjoying your company while the water's dripping off the edge of the rock and pummeling all the ferns and the maples? Wasn't that a sweet, memorable time of intimacy? Or even in the city when you were walking and there was a sudden deluge and you stepped under the awning of a store and stood there for a while the rain pounded down. Krishna wanted to experience that same taste, that same flavor of intimacy with his devotees there in Vrindavan. And so he arranged this whole pastime so that they could explore that particular level of reciprocation. In the meantime, it served its purpose of curbing the pride of Indra. He realized, oh my gosh, bad me. This is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, at Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. I got into illusion, or maybe it was Krishna who put him into illusion so that we could all learn this lesson. That there are many, many demigods, but there's only one God. And when you satisfy the one Supreme Lord from whom all other levels of being come, then everything is done and nothing is undone. That we're going to celebrate a little bit later with the circumambulation of Govardhan Puja. So those are two reasons why we celebrate on this particular day. And there's a whole slew of other ones which I only have 4 minutes to share with you. So let me just cover as much as I possibly can. In the ancient days, speaking of demigods and speaking of Indra, he's our pivotal point between one story and another. Indra's spiritual master or mentor was an irascible sage called Durvasa. One time, Durvasa gave Indra, the king of the heavenly planets and lord of rain, a flower garland from his own neck. That's a great honor when your guru gives you a flower garland. But Indra, who happened to be riding on his elephant at the time, gave the flower garland to his elephant. An elephant doesn't appreciate the finer points of Vaishnava etiquette, so the elephant just threw the flower garland on the ground and stomped on it. At which point Durvasa became very angry, and he cursed Indra that he would be overturned, he would be overthrown, that he and all the demigods who are pious living entities and responsible for order in the universe would be overthrown by an upsurge from the lower planets of the asuras, or the demons, the denizens from hell. So the demigods lost their power due to this curse of Durvasa, and they were expelled from the heavenly planets, and the demons took over. Well, naturally, that made things very difficult for Brahmins and for pious people to execute their religious duties and to become God-conscious. So there was an arrangement made to make a truce between the demigods and the demons for the purpose of churning an ocean of milk which resides at the edge of the universe. And the prediction was that if they cooperated, from that ocean would come an urn, and in that urn was Amrita. Amrita is an elixir drinking which it prolongs your life. And so they called a truce in order to achieve their mutual interests. They got the Mandara mountain to act as a churning rod. They got Vasuki, the king of all serpents, to wrap around the mountain and become the churning rope. And the demons are on one side, and the demigods are on another side, and they started churning back and forth, causing huge waves and turbulence in this ocean. Has anybody ever churned milk before? India's churned milk. So you just have to churn and churn and churn and churn and churn and churn. And then at one point, the milk thickens. She won a churning contest. See, this is what it means to come from India and Nepal. Yeah, this is the special advantage like that. So 14 things most of them auspicious, came from the churning of the ocean of milk. There was one which was inauspicious. It was a virulent poison called Hal poison, which threatened to destroy the universe. And Lord Shiva graciously agreed to drink that poison. As a result of drinking the poison, there were no ill effects. Lord Shiva is practically on the same level as Krishna or Vishnu. So he was able to drink the poison with no... Now, some of Shiva's followers think they can drink poison by taking drugs and intoxicants and all like that. But you shouldn't imitate a great personality like Lord Shiva. He can do it with no ill effects. The same cannot be said of us. The only sign that Lord Shiva had drunk an ocean of poison, the only symptom was he got a little blue tinge on his throat. And after that, he was called Nalini Kanta. Nil means blue. When people say, for instance, just as trivia for you, when they say the Blue Nile, that's a redundancy. They're saying the blue. So after getting rid of the poison, then all these auspicious things kept coming up. Dhanvantari with the elixir, the Amrita, appeared. Lakshmi, who had deserted the demigods when they were cursed and gone to live in the ocean, she reappeared, and then she joined Lord Vishnu, her eternal consort. Utrashrava, beautiful, the head of all horses, appeared. Again, Indra's elephant, Aravata, appeared from the ocean of milk. And then also, Kamadhenu, the Sarabi cow, appeared from the ocean of milk. All these things, these auspicious items, were churned from the ocean of milk. And at this point, because goddess Lakshmi took her birth and reappeared to bless the demigods and reestablish the natural order of things in the universe, Lakshmi is also worshipped as part of the multi-day Diwali celebration. Cows, also because the original prototype of all cows, Sarabi, came out of that ocean of milk. This is a particular occasion to give cows sweets and decorate them and put beautiful garlands on them. Now, over and above all of that, because the demigods and the demons declared a truce for their mutual interest, we take a page from their book also and use this day as an opportunity to put aside our bitterness, our resentment, to bury the hatchet and forgive those that might have done wrong for us. Because we're celebrating what essentially is an agricultural, agrarian calendar, and because this is the month that the harvests have all been taken in, your canning, your preserves have all been done. You've got, hopefully and ideally, plenty of stocks for the winter. So this celebration is a celebration of Thanksgiving. It's the Indian version of Thanksgiving, but also it's the new year as well, because everything's finished. You've got all your crops, you've got everything canned and preserved, and then you've got some leisure time throughout the winter and hopefully plenty of food to get you through. Also, if you're not a farmer, if you're not an agriculturalist, but you're a businessman or a mercantile, this is the end of the fiscal year also. On this day, the merchants and the businessmen, they all close their books. They thank Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, for whatever good business dealings they've had in the past. And they also pray to her for continued good fortune and prosperity in the future. So it's a very, very auspicious occasion. It's a very celebratory occasion. There are so many, it's a confluence of so many different historical, auspicious activities. So we ask everyone to get yourself in a really, really good mood, be excited and expectant about the great future that the Lord has in store for you. And when it comes time, just a little bit later in the program, to take your lamp and offer it to the deities, it's advised not to pray for yourself, not to pray that I get this or I get that, nor my children get this or my children get that. Again, our theme is watering the root. That's why Krishna advises Father to worship Krishna in another form. So we want to pray to God to bless us in the best way that he sees fit. You know, a child may clamor for sugar-coated chocolate caramel crispy cereal, but the parent may not give it to them because it will not be good for their health. So sometimes what we want is not always the best thing. I heard a story just briefly before Arti starts. A preacher was on a small 5-seater plane going somewhere for a revival meeting. It was going to be a couple-hour trip, and many of his associates were pulling down their table trays, putting their laptops on and getting some work done. So the head preacher started pulling on what he thought was his table tray, pulling and yanking, and it seemed to be stuck. And he's pulling it and finagling and yanking it and this way and that way. Even a couple of his associates came across the aisle, and pretty soon there were 3 or 4 people pulling it, and it just wouldn't give. It just wouldn't give. At this point, they looked up and they saw a sign that said, "Emergency exit, do not open." They said, "Thank you, Jesus." But God will not answer all of your prayers because they may not be in your, as an eternal spiritual living being's, best interest. Your prayers may only be for the temporary benefit of your body and your mind. So in the mood, Tamashir Mam Jyotir Gamaya, going from the darkness to the light, from matter to spirit, going from that which is temporal to that which is eternal, and ultimately going from the world of death to the world of deathlessness. When it comes time to make your prayer, try and do it with God's pleasure in mind, and try to make a prayer that will be equally beneficial for all of God's children, not only those in human bodies, but those in the bodies of birds and reptiles and 4-legged animals. And we are all God's children. And the difference between the way we see and the way God sees is we can't help but see in terms of those who are like us. But God sees the spirit. He doesn't see the body. He sees the spirit. So even the ant is as dear to God as the human being, as the President of the United States or the Vice President. So try to be in that mood on this very elevating celebration of good over evil, light over darkness. And when it comes to that pivotal time to offer your prayer, try to offer the most broad-based, universal prayer. Try to offer the kind of prayer that God would, which is non-denominational, non-sectarian, and even non-species. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you for coming. Please stay safe. Maintain a safe distance between each and every one of you. Enjoy the celebration safely, in good health. And we'll continue right now with the arti, which is actually about 5 minutes overdue. Govinda Dev is going to chant it. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.